Greetings. Welcome. So I said I would do 3 experiments, so 3 experiments I will do. And for a while, I haven't posted in a while. For a while, I was thinking I'm not making any progress. And in either understanding what's going on or getting improved efficiency. But I'm kind of getting a little bit more back on track with that. And also in the back of my mind, I was thinking this is getting boring. This is getting boring for me. I want to, probably for you then too, if I haven't been boring before, I want to switch to what I call a magnetic ramp motor, which another analogous concept is a V-gate. Where's my finger? It doesn't. A V-gate. So I built a magnetic ramp motor years ago, just gluing a bunch of CDs together and putting the magnetic ramp with super glue and sealing wax and other fancy stuff, and it worked great. That's from Puff the Magic Dragon. When I was young, I used to cry my eyes red. I think I was like 4 or 5. In hindsight, I kind of think my mother would put that record on because she got a kick out how emotional you got. I'm not sure about that. I could be going a bit too far. But to comment on society, women are losing their authority by not embracing motherhood. You know, the biggest 6'2" Marine has deep in his memory being at the breast of his mother and his mother's heart. Hearing that beat, feeling that beat. That's where their authority comes from. They continue the society. And they've gotten deceived into, we can go out and dig ditches as good as the Marines and kill people just as well. You know, A, you can't, and B, why would you want to do that? The Marines don't want to do that. They just understand that it's necessary. I'm getting off topic. In this video and this experiment, we want to look at the issue of the magnet wire diameter, the gauge of the wire, and how that might affect the behavior of a pulse motor. And I guess we have to do a little bit of background before that, because you think about either a permanent magnet or an electromagnet, and specifically an electromagnet is what we're going to be talking about here. And what is the unit to measure the magnetic field strength? So we want a strong electromagnet, and we're going to look at wire gauge. So how do you measure magnetic field strength? And right off the bat, we run into a conundrum. So, AI overview. Oh, that must be authoritative. The CCP says, sorry, the SI unit for magnetic field strength is the Tesla, also known as magnetic flux density. Now, we go down here, the first result is the unit of H, magnetic field strength, is amperes per meter. So which is it? And then if you delve a little further, there's actually, because I mean, come on, if you buy a magnetic, thing to measure the magnetic field strength, it's a Gauss meter. So now we got a third one, is Gauss. So I'll just kind of give you the cliff notes there. If you spend the time on it, the Gauss is just 1/10,000th of the Tesla. So fortunately, we don't have 3 different units. We only have 2 different units to measure magnetic field strength. We've got the Tesla and we've got the ampere turn. Now this AI summary, I think, is effed up. Oh, no. They're bright. Oh no. The SI unit is a Tesla. Another common unit, different but related, measures the magnetic field strength H. So in other words, the Tesla, or more common, more commonly the Gauss. You generally get a Gauss meter, which is just measuring Teslas, just 1/10,000. But the Gauss meter is measuring the B field. The ampere measures the magnetic H field. So now we got a conundrum, don't we? They're saying there are two different magnetic fields. That's not actually the case, and it's fairly simple to understand once you take a moment to look at it. So we see reiterated here again, the unit of B, magnetic flux density, is the Tesla. The unit of H, magnetic field strength, is amperes. This is the key part. B and H differ in how they take the medium into account. In vacuum, the two fields are related through the vacuum permeability. B divided by blah blah equals H. In a magnetized materials, they differ by the magnetization field of the material. Now I'll let you in on a little secret here, that U0 vacuum permeability, that differs from the vacuum permeability of air by about, I'd have to look it up, by something like 1.01 versus 1. So what that says in practice is that B equals H when you have an air core. When you stick in a ferrite core, like welding rods or a ferrite rod or something that's designed to be a core, then you notice, oh my gosh, the magnetic field is much stronger. Now B, Gauss, Tesla, becomes much greater than your ampere turns, which would be just from the winds of your coil. So let's back up now, and I'll talk about the conundrum I noticed, and why for a moment I was like, oh my gosh, and then I thought about it some more and was like, no, I don't know how, but that's not going to be the case. Sorry. So we understand the difference now between ampere turns and Gauss, and ampere turns is what you would get with an air core. The Gauss or Teslas would be what you would get from the ampere turns plus what you're getting from the core. So the ampere turn is the unit of magnetomotive force, and we want to get to the definition. It's the current of 1 ampere flowing through a single turn loop gives you 1 amp turn. Turns refer to the winding number of an electrical conductor. So that's not real tough. If you have a 1-turn coil with 1 amp flowing through it, you have 1 amp turn. If you have 2 turns and the resistance would double, so you have half an amp, you still have 1 amp turn. If you have 2 turns and you change the resistance of the wire such that 1 amp will flow through, then you have 2 turns with 1 amp and you have 2 amp turns. So that's how amp turns work. Now here's something that I thought of, and initially I rejected it out of hand. I just said, of course that can't be. That when you vary the gauge of a wire, making it thicker or thinner, then you're going to vary the amp flow in the turns such that your amp turns remain constant. And even when I first did the math in my head, I set it up so that it was that case, even though it's not that case. And I'll try to show it to you. I'm horrible with artistry. Yeah, that's how you say it. I was a pretty darn good musician when I was young, but not good with artistry. So let me just show you. Okay, I said I wasn't a good I was a good musician. I wasn't a good artist. Very bad, very bad. So let's pretend that you have a wire, and right now we're looking down cross-sectionally at the wire. This is the wire here, and we're looking at it cross-sectionally. So if you divide the wire diameter in half, what happens to the wire? Well, you've divided the wire diameter in half, but the surface area has gone to 1/4 what it was before. So let's leave all the frequency stuff out of the way. And the frequency related issues are skin effect and proximity effect, and they all affect what your actual functional amount of the surface area that you get at different frequencies are. So let's say you're just putting 5 seconds of current through here, so that you don't have to worry about skin effect, frequency effect, or any of the other stuff. So what would happen? Let's say, now I'm not going to bother to try to draw something, even though it would be simple, but I think you can follow along really easily. You have this first one with this size, and you make it a 1-turn wire, 1-turn coil, and you put 1 amp through it. So you get 1 amp turn of magnetomotive force. I like that. Magnetomotive force. That's what the amp turn is called. The unit of magnetomotive force. Now, let's say you cut it in half. How many turns are you going to be able to fit? You're going to be able to fit 4. What is going to happen to your resistance? Your resistance is going to follow the area of your wire. So your resistance will be 4-fold. So now, instead of having 1 amp and 1 turn, you will have 1/4 amp and 4 turns, and your amp turns will again be 1. So that presents a conundrum. And as I said, at first that was so straightforward, I thought, no, it can't be. And in my mind, I even did the math wrong. But that is what happens to the H field. So then I was excited for a moment, but then I thought, there have been lots of really, really, really smart people looking at magnetic motors for a long time. I think they would have noticed if, oh my gosh, we got out to 36 gauge wire, the thing just runs itself now. So it's clearly not that simple, that if you just keep decreasing the wire, you're going to leave your magnetomotive force constant and just decreasing amp draw the whole time. So just some ideas off the top of my head why it's not that simple. One is reactive resistance, and we would have to talk about that for a long time, but of course the reactance of your coil is the main resistance that occurs. As you add more wires, the reactance increases. Another one is that I have a ferrite core in there, and it may be that 90% of your magnetic field strength is from the magnetic core, and so varying the ampere turns is not making that big a difference. I haven't glued those in, so it might be worthwhile, I don't know if I'll get to it, to pull them out and do the same thing with air cores and see what I get there. If I'll probably do that at some point, and if I see something interesting, I will pass it along. Reactance, ampere turn, reactance, core, the interaction of the magnet spinning past on the rotor, depending on how many turns you have, is going to change. So that's a third reason. I don't know, maybe I could think of other reasons as well. But this was the first time that I thought, oh my gosh, it may be that wire gauge has a change on the efficiency of your motive power depending on how many milliwatts you're throwing at the thing. This was the first time I was like, well, maybe that's the case. And so that's what we're going to look at now in just a moment. All right, rather than this becoming a 5-hour video, we'll end it here, and I'll show you in the next video the astonishing results of looking at different wire gauge. There are some parts that are pretty interesting. But to get back to my moralizing, so mothers, be good to your daughters. Well, daughters will love like you do. Girls become lovers that turn into mothers. So mothers, be good to your daughters too. The great John Mayer. Keep smiling. Talk to you later.